Right, ready to dive into a deep dive into a lost civilization. Maybe. Buckle up, because we're exploring Graham Hancock's Magicians of the Gods. This is a book that really makes you think differently about ancient history. We're talking cataclysmic floods, mysterious megaliths, and a forgotten age of knowledge.
Yeah. It's an intriguing theory that kind of like makes you question what you thought you knew. Like instead of just this straight line from hunter-gatherers to civilization, Hancock's like, nope. What about something way more dramatic?
Okay, so how does he even start to like back that up?
Well, his jumping off point is this site in Turkey. Have you ever heard of Göbekli Tepe?
No.
A lot of people haven't.
Yeah.
It's like this huge, it's changing archaeology. Basically, imagine these perfectly carved pillars, like T-shaped. Some of them are like over 18 feet tall,
Whoa.
arranged in circles. Okay, now picture this. They're dated to around 9600 BC.
Okay.
That's over 11,600 years ago.
That's old.
Yeah, this puts it right in the Upper Paleolithic period.
So, okay, what's the big deal with that date? Why is that so important?
Okay, think back to, like early humans, cavemen, all that. The Upper Paleolithic. That's when we had hunter-gatherer societies. They're nomadic, haven't really settled down, haven't invented agriculture, that kind of thing.
Right.
And the thing is, we didn't think they could do the kind of stuff that you need to do to build something like Göbekli Tepe. Like, that takes organization. It takes, like, knowing how to build stuff.
So you're saying that Göbekli Tepe, like, changes everything. Like, it changes how we think about early civilization.
Pretty much. It's like, hold on, what if our ancestors were way more advanced way earlier than we thought?
That's crazy. Okay, so then how does he go from like potentially older, more advanced civilization to this idea of like a global like cataclysm?
Well, he's suggesting that this civilization, the one that built Göbekli Tepe, right, they get wiped out by a huge global event. And it happens around 12,800 years ago.
Yeah.
And this lines up with a period called the Younger Dryas, which is this time of like super intense climate change. Like temperatures are going crazy, massive floods, tons of extinctions.
So is this like a real life apocalypse we're talking about?
Yeah.
Like what kind of evidence is there for that?
So Hancock points to some like geological evidence that suggests that maybe a comet hit the Earth.
Oh, wow.
During this time. And he's arguing that impact, that's what caused the Younger Dryas. That's what messed up the climate so badly.
Okay, so we've got like a potential older civilization. They're building crazy structures like Göbekli Tepe, and then bam, something happens. So where do the magicians of the gods come in? Like what's the connection there?
Well, that's where he's pulling in like all these ancient myths from like all these different cultures all over the world. And he points out that so many cultures have this story of a great flood.
Right.
Like this big event that just wipes out like the world before. And he's arguing that those myths, they're not just made up. They're like echoes, like memories of that Younger Dryas cataclysm passed down.
Right.
Like generation to generation as like, hey, don't forget this.
So it's like a warning, but also like a memory for all of humanity. That's kind of amazing, but also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and it makes you think, but that's just the beginning. I mean, he goes on and he talks about similar megalithic structures all over the planet. Gunung Padang in Indonesia. He even talks about underwater ruins off the coast of India.
Underwater ruins?
Yeah, and he thinks that these structures, this could be the evidence of that lost civilization, the one with the advanced knowledge that got scattered by the cataclysm.
Hold on, underwater ruins. We have to come back to that. But first, tell me a little bit more about these megalithic structures. Like, what makes them so special, and why does Hancock think that they are connected to this lost civilization?
Okay, so first of all, megalithic, right? We're talking big stones, massive.
Yeah.
Often, like tons. And they're put together without mortar, without modern tools.
Right.
Think Stonehenge, but way bigger.
Okay.
And the thing is, a lot of these structures, like Göbekli Tepe, they seem to be older than, when we thought civilization was that sophisticated.
Right.
It's like they're lining things up with the stars. They've got complex engineering. They've got artistic skills that just, it's like, hold on, how did they do that?
So Hancock's saying that these megaliths are like evidence of like a global civilization. Like they're all connected because they all knew how to build this way.
Yeah.
And this is all before the Younger Dryas.
Exactly. And he thinks that the survivors, they become the magicians of the gods.
Okay.
They're the ones that travel around, spread the knowledge, try to rebuild.
So they're like the little seeds of knowledge.
Yeah.
Planted in the ashes.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like a real life Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, ancient ruins under the water. But okay, let's go back to the magicians of the gods for a second. Like, who were they?
Yeah.
How did they survive this huge event?
Well, that's like the million-dollar question that Hancock's trying to figure out, right? He thinks maybe they've found some kind of shelter, like underground.
Okay.
Or maybe somewhere really high up.
Okay.
You know, just to protect their knowledge while everything's going crazy. He even compares it to some ancient myths. Like, have you ever heard of the story of Yuma?
No.
It's from Zoroastrian tradition. and basically it's this wise king, and he gets warned about this coming ice age, and he builds this like underground sanctuary. It's called a vara.
Okay.
And it's supposed to protect everyone and keep the seeds of civilization stuff.
So it's like an ancient bunker.
Yeah, like a way to ride out the apocalypse.
Are there any real places like that, though? Like that we know about?
Actually, yeah. Hancock talks about these huge underground cities, like Derinkuyu in Turkey. Imagine going down, down, down into the earth, and it's all these tunnels and rooms, and they've got living spaces, places for air to come in, even wineries down there.
What?
Yeah, all carved out of rock.
That's insane.
Thousands of people could have lived in these places, and they're ancient, like thousands of years old.
So, like, at the same time that people are building Göbekli Tepe, other people are going underground.
It makes you think about how we view the ancient world, right?
Really?
Like maybe they were more together than we thought, and these underground places weren't just in one spot.
Right.
They're all over, which kind of makes you think about Hancock's idea of these global survivors.
Okay, but let's say they did survive.
Right.
What happens next? How do they rebuild? How does their knowledge get passed on?
Well, Hancock thinks that maybe they set up these, like, centers of learning.
Okay.
Like, he talks about this monastery of the Seven Sages. He thinks it might have been at Giza.
Wait, like the Giza with the pyramids?
It's the one.
No way. Tell me more about this monastery. What is that?
Okay, so Hancock's theory, it's that Giza was important way before the Egyptians, maybe even back to this lost civilization time.
Wow.
And he brings up the Orion correlation theory. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, it's like the pyramids are lined up with Orion's belt or something.
Yeah, but specifically how they would looked in 10,500 BC, right when the Younger Dryas was happening. So he's suggesting that the Egyptians, they inherited this site, all this astronomical stuff from someone way older.
So the pyramids are like giant clues pointing back to this lost civilization.
It's a possibility.
That's wild. What about the Sphinx, though? That's always been kind of a head-scratcher, even on its own.
The Sphinx is a whole other mystery.
Right.
Hancock actually says that we've got the date wrong on that, too.
Really?
He points to the erosion on the Sphinx's body. Like, it looks like water damage.
Okay.
But the thing is, when we thought the Sphinx was built, Egypt was way too dry for that.
So he's saying that the Sphinx is even older than the Egyptians.
Could be. He sees it as another piece of the puzzle, you know?
Okay.
Another sign of this lost civilization, this group with all this knowledge.
Did they build it, though? The Sphinx? The magicians of the gods?
That's where he starts speculating a bit.
Okay.
He thinks the Sphinx, those megaliths, all that stuff, it might have been built with technology that's just gone now.
Lost technology.
Lost to time. Maybe sound, maybe some kind of ancient concrete, maybe even energy we don't understand yet. He's talking about things that we can barely even imagine.
So he's saying, like, ancient civilizations, maybe they were more advanced than us.
In some ways, maybe. He looks at how precise the megaliths are, how huge they are. He talks about Baalbek in Lebanon.
Yeah.
They have these stones, some of them way over 800 tons.
800.
800. And they somehow moved them, cut them, put them in place perfectly.
That's like moving a building.
Exactly.
Right.
And not just the moving. The cuts are so precise, and there's no mortar. It's just, how did they do it?
Yeah, how did they do it? Okay, so maybe our ancestors were onto something. Maybe they knew things that we don't. But where did it all go? What happened to that knowledge?
That's the big question, isn't it? Hancock thinks that a lot of it vanished after whatever happened, but he also thinks that pieces of it are still out there.
Okay.
like encoded in the myths, in symbols, even in the structures themselves.
Okay.
He sees it like they left us clues.
Okay.
These magicians of the gods, they're like, hey, find this, and you'll find your way back to what we knew.
So it's a giant puzzle.
The biggest one there is.
Yeah.
And we're only just starting to figure out the edge pieces.
It's like we're rewriting history as we speak.
Right.
But if Hancock is right, this isn't just some ancient history lesson. He's saying this is important to us. Like,
Yeah.
you know, what's the connection?
Yeah, he's not just interested in the past. He wants to know, like, what does this mean for us?
Right, exactly.
And he keeps coming back to the Younger Dryas, that event, the one that wiped everything out. He says it could happen again.
Oh, man.
Remember that comet?
The one that might have caused all this in the first place.
Right. So some scientists think that comet, it was part of a group.
Okay.
And some of those pieces are still out there.
You're saying there could be like more planet killer comets just like hanging out?
It's a possibility, and that's what Hancock's saying. We got to be ready.
So it's not just about avoiding comets though, right? He's talking about other things too.
Right. He sees all these parallels, like what happened back then, it's happening now.
What do you mean?
Climate change, we're messing up the environment, there's inequality everywhere.
Wow.
It's like he's saying, look what happened to them, you know, like a warning sign.
It makes you think, what are they going to say about us in like 1,000 years? Are we going to be the cautionary tale?
It's a good question. But Hancock, he doesn't think it's hopeless. He thinks we can course correct.
Okay, so how? How do we do that?
He says we have to learn from our mistakes. Right. The mistakes of the past. And he thinks those myths, those monuments, they have the answers.
It's like they're trying to tell us something.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about like knowing the past. It's about letting the past guide us.
That's the idea. And it's an idea that really seems to resonate with people.
I get it. It makes you wonder. It makes you think. And honestly, this book, Magicians of the Gods, it was a wild ride.
It really makes you look at the world differently, doesn't it?
Totally. Well, that was our deep dive.
Into Magicians of the Gods by Graham Hancock. We explored this theory of a lost civilization, and we asked, what if they were more advanced than we think? What if their downfall can teach us something about our future?
And what if those answers are closer than we think?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for going on this deep dive with us. And we'll see you next time.